Hello everyone, this is Mr. Underkoffler, and today we're looking at the worksheet called Operations with Integers Review. Now, before we get started, let's go ahead and pull out the PSSA Big Ideas packet. It's probably pink if I'm choosing the same color that I have chosen in previous years. And we're going to look at the very first page called Operations with Integers, specifically positive and negative integers. And here's what I want to review with you. You don't always add just because you see addition. If you have a negative plus a negative, or a positive plus a positive, then you will add their absolute values. And a negative plus a negative is going to equal a negative, just like a positive plus a positive would equal a positive. However, if you have a negative plus a positive, then you will subtract in your head, subtract the absolute values, and sometimes you'll subtract off to the side. The answer will depend on who has the bigger absolute value. So here with negative 12 plus 4, negative 12 is the bigger absolute value, so the answer is negative. Here, if it's positive 12 plus negative 4, again, different signs, so I'm going to subtract in my head, but the positive number this time has the greater absolute value, so the answer will be positive. So with that in mind, back to the worksheet. Let's do some problems together. Starting with number 1, we got a positive plus a negative. What are we going to do? We're going to go off to the side and we're going to subtract their absolute values. Now, notice I am not putting negatives here, although it kind of looks like I am because I have a minus here. It's not meant to be a negative. This is meant to be subtracting. 7 minus 6 is 1. 5 minus 1 is 4. This was kind of nice. I didn't have to borrow at all. Who has the greater absolute value? It's the positive 57. So therefore, the answer will remain positive. Go ahead and write that down. Problem number 2. Again, we have different signs, a negative and a positive. So again, we're going to go off to the side and subtract. Notice this time I'm going to have to borrow because 8 was bigger than 3. So we're going to borrow from the 7, making that a 6. The 3 will become a 13. I hope you're writing all those down with me. 13 minus 8 is 5. 6 minus 2 is 4. So will it be positive 45 or will it be negative 45? Well, since the negative number has the bigger absolute value, boom, the answer is going to be negative. Now, those two problems, we subtracted off to the side because it was a negative and a positive, different signs. But check out problem number 3. Here they are both negative. So here we're going to add their absolute values. 3 plus 4 is 7. 3 plus 6 is 9. We get 97. And a negative plus a negative will remain negative. If you thought it would be a positive, you're probably thinking about multiplication and division, which we will eventually review. But no, when you add, the answer is still negative. Now, I want to do number 4 with you as well. When you have a whole bunch of negatives and positives mixed in together, what I would recommend that you do is rearrange the problem. This is called using the commutative property. Write this down with me. And have your negatives next to each other and your positives next to each other, and then group them that way, which is technically the associative property, and add your negatives together because the negative plus a negative you're going to add. So let's do this together right now. 6 plus 4 is 10. We'd carry the 1. 1 plus 2 plus 4 is 7. So that's going to give us negative 70. A negative plus a negative is a negative. And then a positive plus a positive is obviously a positive. You're going to add off to the side here as well. 7 plus 2 is 9. 1 plus 3 is 4. So that gives us 49. All right, now we have a negative plus a positive at the end. So now we will go ahead and subtract off to the side. And sometimes you can do this in your head. But we're going to have to borrow here, so I probably wouldn't do this in my head, because the 9 is bigger than the 0, so we have to borrow. 7 is going to become 6. 0 is going to become 10. 10 minus 9 is 1. 6 minus 4 is 2. Who has the bigger absolute value? It's the negative this time. So the negative wins. The answer is negative 21. If you need to hit pause to write everything down or to catch up with me or rewind the video if you have to, please feel free to. That's the beauty of videos. All right, before we move on to problem 5, go back to that pink PSSA Big Ideas operations with integers page because I want to quickly review with you how subtraction is the same as adding by the opposite. So you probably remember this from earlier this year. If you have subtracting by 6, that's the same as adding by -6. Notice how the first number stays the same. First number doesn't change, but we make it adding the opposite. You don't have to write that down. I have that over here, but that's how you would do these problems. Same thing here. You would add the opposite. Again, you don't have to write that down. We already have it over here on this page for you, and that's how this problem would work. Here's another one. We would add the opposite. First number would stay the same, and then you would go from there. So with that in mind, back to the white worksheet. Problem number 5, do you see what I see? We have subtraction in between. So with our pencil, let's make that adding the opposite. 2 slashes, one for making subtraction adding, and the next slash for making the number to the right of it become its opposite. And the reason we do this is so that way we don't have to learn a whole bunch of tricky rules with subtraction. We can just do this. And then we can use the rules of adding positives and negatives. As you can now see, we have a negative plus a negative. So off to the side, we're going to add their absolute values. And this belongs to problem number 6. That must belong to a different. So apparently I don't have this written down. I apologize. 1 and 8 would make 9. 6 and 2 would make 8. And there you go. -89. Problem number 6. Subtraction is the same as adding by the opposite. And here is where I have this problem. I apologize. I have the side work at the wrong place. 6 plus 6 is 12. We'd carry the 1. 1 plus 4 plus 3 is 7 plus 8. Plus the 1 gives us 8. So that would make this become 82. All right. Now, am I going to make number 7 become adding the opposite? Yes, I will, because again, it is subtraction. So we'll make this become adding the opposite. We have a positive and a negative this time. So this time we're going to go off to the side and we're going to subtract their absolute values because they had different signs. Notice I put the 82 on top. I should have mentioned this earlier. Whenever you have to subtract their absolute values, the greater absolute value goes on top. You probably remember that from earlier this year, so please don't always put the first number on top. Only if the first number was the bigger absolute value would you put it on top. But if the second number is the bigger absolute value, that's what's going to go on top. All right, we're going to borrow from the 8, making that a 7. The 2 becomes a 12, and we subtract. We get 5 here and 1 here. Who has the bigger absolute value? It's the negative. So it's -15. All right, for 8 and 9, can you figure out which problem we are not going to make adding the opposite and which one we will? If you have to hit pause to figure that out, please feel free to. But if not, here it is. Problem number 9, you see how that one has subtraction? That's the one we are going to make become adding the opposite. And don't worry that there were parentheses here. These parentheses really do not matter if there's only one number inside. So that's the one that gets made adding the opposite, not number 8. Number 8 was already addition. Do not try to make that become adding the opposite. That would be a big no-no. All right, we're going to subtract the absolute values because different signs. And we're going to have to do some borrowing here. 2 is going to become 1. The 1 is going to become 11. 7 minus 5 is 2. 11 minus 8 is 3. And 1, take away nothing, is 1. Figure out who has the bigger absolute value and determine if this is going to be a positive answer or a negative answer. Did you figure that out? The negative number has the bigger absolute value, so it's negative. Problem number 9. Are we going to add off to the side or are we going to subtract off to the side? Look at the signs. Different signs. So we're going to subtract off to the side. The bigger absolute value is going to go on top, as it always does whenever you subtract. 6 minus 3. Did I say 6 minus 3? I said 9 minus 3 is 6. 7 minus 5 is 2. Who has the bigger absolute value? It's the positive number this time. All right, I just did 9 problems with you. That might have been a little excessive, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't leave any detail untouched here. So that way you knew what kind of problems you're going to make out in the opposite and what kind you're not. And when you're going to subtract off to the side when they're different signs, and when you're going to add off to the side when they're same signs, like we had here with number 5 and with number 6. Okay. With that now all in mind, and you can use your pink PSSA Big Ideas packet to help you as well, I want you to finish this entire page. So it's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yes, these have more than one number involved. Oh, 16 and 17, a little tricky here. We have addition here and then subtraction here. So this part's not going to be made out in the opposite, but this part will. And you'll have to keep that kind of thing in mind when you get to number 17 as well. And then there's also number 18 at the bottom. So I want you to go the whole way to number 18, trying these problems on your own. Hit pause on the video right now. Do 10 through 18 on your own, and then hit play once you are ready to see how you did. Okay. Hopefully you already did 10 through 18. If not, you better hit pause and complete them right now, because here I go. This one was already addition. Do not make it out in the opposite, but it's different signs. You're going to go off to the side and subtract their absolute values. Bigger absolute values on top. That's going to give you 46, and the answer is negative 46 because the negative number had the bigger absolute value. Problem number 11, subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. That's what you should have done first. Notice we now have same signs. So we're going to add off to the side, giving us 66. The answer stays a negative, negative 66. If you messed up, feel free to hit pause and fix your work. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going. Problem number 12, a negative plus a negative. Notice there's addition in between. Do not make this adding the opposite. But 2 negatives we're going to add off to the side, giving us 97. Answer is going to be negative 97. Problem number 13, another problem where there's addition already in between. Do not make it become adding the opposite. Put the bigger absolute value on top, and you're going to subtract because they had different signs. That's going to give you 28, and the answer is going to stay positive 28 because the bigger number had the positive number had the bigger absolute value. And number 14. Oh, we got subtraction in between. Did you make it become adding the opposite? And that's going to give you 17 because it's a positive plus a positive, so you're going to add 17. Again, if you have to fix any of your work, please feel free to hit pause before you move on. Problem number 15. Positives and negatives. I would switch the order, getting the positives next to each other and the negatives next to each other. Now, I don't care which side you put the positives on and which side you put the negatives on. You could have it flip-flopped here. You could have the negatives on the left and the positives on the right, and that would be fine. Positive plus a positive, that's, spoiler alert. 70 plus 21, I must have just done this mentally. This was pretty easy to do mentally. Negative plus a negative, you're going to add off to the side, giving you 83. That's going to be negative 83. And since we now have a positive and a negative, here's what I accidentally showed you earlier. Subtract off to the side, bigger absolute value goes on top, that's the 91. You're going to have to borrow. Since 91 has a bigger absolute value, this will stay positive 8 for the final answer. Problem number 16. Subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. Now, the 2 negatives are already next to each other. That you can just go ahead and add them together right away, giving you negative 22. And then bring down that plus positive 26. A negative and a positive, you'll subtract. This one you could probably subtract in your head. The positive number wins. The positive number has the bigger absolute value. Problem number 17, subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. That was here, but not here. This was already addition. You actually could do the 2 negatives first. I didn't. I went ahead and just went left to right, and I apologize if that's not the way you did this. You could do it the other way. A positive and a negative going to subtract again. So for those of you who did the 2 negatives first, that would have given you negative 84. And then positive 64 and negative 84, again, would give you the same answer that I got at the end, negative 20. And that's totally fine if you did it in that order, as long as you make subtraction become adding the opposite first. Otherwise, you would not be able to change the order if you kept minus in between. Okay. Oh, one more thing I should say. If you didn't make it out in the opposite, you could have just done positive minus 25, and that would have been like elementary school subtraction. So I don't really know if you have to make it out in the opposite. If it's a bigger positive minus a smaller positive, and you're just going to continue going left to right, then you don't technically have to make it out in the opposite in that type of scenario. Last problem on this page. You might be like, oh, Mr. Underkoffler, there's decimals. Okay, not a big deal. You saw how there's subtraction in between? Make it adding the opposite. And if you do that, you'll see it's a positive plus a positive. So both arrows should go to the right. And that really eliminates these answer choices super fast and leaving you with only one choice that made any sense at all if you made subtraction adding the opposite. And so yes, the answer was 6.0, which is just 6. Okay, before we flip to the back side of the worksheet, I would like for you to go back to that pink PSSA Big Ideas packet on operations with integers and go to the bottom sections where there's multiplication on the left and division on the right. This is kind of easier because you don't have to worry about who has the bigger absolute value anymore whenever you multiply or divide. If you have two numbers with the same sign, whether they're both negative or even if they're both positive, which I didn't even bother putting on the page because I figured you all knew a positive times a positive equals a positive. Well, two numbers that have the same sign that you multiply, you will always get a positive. But if they have different signs, then you're always going to get a negative. And those same rules work with division. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, just like if you were multiplying. And a negative divided by a positive, or flip-flop the other way, will always give you a negative. Let's practice those rules right now. Problem number 19. Back to the worksheet. We're on the back side now, still not using any calculator. We got a positive times a negative. By the way, this is a creative way of showing multiplication. Hopefully you remember this from math in the past. If you have a number next to parentheses with nothing in between, that is multiplication. All right, we're going to go off to the side. Probably not going to do this in our head. 6 times 4 is 24. Carry the 2. 4 times 3 is 12 plus 2 gives us 14. Will it be positive or will it be negative? Well, they had different signs, so that makes the answer always negative. And problem number 20. Hopefully you notice they have different signs, a negative and a positive. So once again, you will get a negative. And this was division. Hopefully you know your times tables. Hopefully you know that 3 9s make 27. So this is negative 3. No side work was needed on number 20 because it was really easy. Let's move on. Problem number 21. This is not the easy kind of division. You probably have no idea how many 4s can make 78. So we're going to go off to the side and set up our long division. How many 4s go into 7? Only one of them. 1 times 4 is 4. Subtract. You would get 3. Bring down the 8. How many 4s would go into 38? 9 of them, but it's not going to be perfect. 38 minus 36 leaves us with 2. Now, here's what we're going to do. The whole number part on top will stay the whole number. The remainder will be put over what we were dividing by, giving you a mixed number. And I think you guys all know that 2/4 reduces to 1/2. By the way, we could have put a decimal point in as 0 and brought it down, and then 4 would have gone into 20 5 times. We would have had 19.5, which is the same thing as 19.5. Both answers would be acceptable. You might be like, Mr. Underkoffler, why is the answer a positive? Because when you multiply or divide two numbers that both have the same sign, like a negative and a negative, that answer will be a positive. Speaking of which, problem number 22. Again, we are multiplying two numbers that are the same sign. just like we divided here on problem 21 with two numbers of the same sign. So I can tell you right now, this answer will be positive. But 23 and 14, probably not something we do in our head. So we're going to go off to the side and multiply. 4 times 3 is 12. We're going to carry the 1, which I did not already write, so I'll put that right here. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 gives us 9. Now, I'm going to erase the 1 that I carried before I multiply by the 1 right here. Okay, before I multiply by the 1, I need to put a 0. Then take 1 times 3, which is 3, 1 times 2, which is 2. And I'm going to add those two rows together. 2 plus 0 is 2. 9 plus 3 is 12. Carry the 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. And that took a little bit of some side work there. But we got 322, and the answer is going to stay positive because we were multiplying two numbers with the same sign. A negative times a negative is a positive. All right. One more thing I want to bring to your attention. Go back to that PSSA Big Ideas packet. At the bottom left-hand corner, here's what I typed up for you. If you're multiplying an odd amount of negative numbers, the answer will be negative. If you multiply an even amount of negative numbers, like 2 even numbers or 4 negative numbers or 6 negative numbers, the answer will stay positive or will become positive. And these statements will work for exponents. If you have a negative number in parentheses taken to an odd exponent, the answer will be negative. If you have a negative number taken to an even exponent, the answer will be positive. Let's practice that on problem number 23. We have a negative number to an odd exponent, so I already know this answer is going to be negative, but let me prove it to you. Third power means times itself, it times itself again. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. But once I multiply to another negative 2, I'm back to a negative. And that's why I told you that an odd exponent with a negative base will give you a negative answer. And right there, you can see it for yourself. Okay, I would like for you to try the next few problems on your own. I want you to try 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28. Those 5 problems. Do not move on to 29 yet because I want to do that one with you. So just the next 5 problems. 24 through 28. Hit pause on the video and try those problems on your own and then hit play once you're ready to see how you did. Okay, have you already done 24 through 28? If not, you better hit pause now. All right, number 24, the answer is positive 81. I could prove it to you several different ways. Some kids will group the negative 3's together and get 9 times 9, which is 81. Other kids will do 9 times 3, which is 27, and 27 times 3, giving you 81. So either way you do it, you're going to get positive 81. An even amount of negatives will give you a positive. Problem number 25, you might have done some long division off to the side. You could kind of do this short division. 6 goes into 3 2 times. Did I say 6 goes into 3? I meant to say 3 goes into 6 2 times and 3 goes into 3 1 time. And that's going to stay positive because it was a negative divided by a negative. Problem number 26. You went off to the side, got 60. It's a negative this time because they had different signs. Even exponent number 27. This really means a negative times a negative, which is a positive. And finally 28. You can probably divide here in your head, giving you negative 7. Oh, negative 7 because they had different signs. Feel free to hit pause in the video if you have to fix any of your work. All right, we got 3 problems left, and I'm going to lead you through 29, and I want to remind you of order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I'm going to quickly type that up here off to the side. We are talking about PEMDAS. Now, did this problem have parentheses? Yes, but there's only one number inside of each of them. So this is not really a parenthesis step. So now we're going to move on to exponents. We do have exponents here. Negative 5 to the third power means negative 5 times negative 5 times another negative 5. Well, 5 times 5 is 25. 25 times 5. You might be able to do this mentally because 5 quarters is $1.25. But if you couldn't do it mentally, then you would have said that 5 times 5 was 25. You would have carried the 2. 5 times 2 was 10 plus 2 gives you 12. An odd amount of negatives leaves you with a negative. So write that down with me, negative 125. Now let's bring down everything else in the problem. So the minus gets brought down. The negative 8 gets brought down. The division and the 32. What do I do next? Multiplication and division. Well, there was no multiplication here, but there is division. We're going to divide next. A positive and a negative will leave you with a negative 4. Now bring down the subtraction of negative 125. Oh, wait a minute. Subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. Now, you don't maybe want to do it up there because maybe you were going to bring it down and then make it become adding the opposite. Because we are now at the point where we do addition or subtraction going left to right. That's the last part of order of operations. And I hope you guys know that when you have a negative plus a positive, you will subtract in your head. And since 125 has a bigger absolute value than negative 4, this is going to be a positive answer. Okay, I did 29. You try 30 and 31 on your own. So last problems to go. Hit pause on the video, do those 2 problems on your own, and then hit play once you're ready to see how you did. Okay, did you already do 30 and 31? If not, better hit pause because here I go. Were there exponents here? No. Was there multiplication or division? Yes. In fact, there's multiplication and division. We're going to do left to right. So we have to do the multiplication first since it's further to the left than the division. Negative 21 times 3 is negative 63. You might have gone off to the side to figure that out. Maybe not. Negative 63 divided by 9 is negative 7. Notice I'm not doing anything with the 18 yet because there was addition there. We saved that for last. A positive and a negative, subtract in your head, and you get 11. Problem 31. We did have exponents this time. So negative 6 to the second power is positive 36. Now, the minus gets brought down, but this was positive 36. Bring everything else down. Do we have multiplication or division? Yes, we have division here, and we have multiplication here, and look what's in between. Addition and subtraction. So we can divide and multiply at the same time if there's something in between that gets done later, such as addition. So 36 divided by negative 3 is negative 12, and negative 7 times 4 is negative 28. The 36 divided by 3, you could do the short division style. 3 goes into 3 one time, 3 goes into 6 2 times. From here, subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. Now, you might not have written it underneath. You might have just made it become adding the opposite right here where you had it. That would have been fine. And then finally, so that's going to give you 40, and 12 is going to give you 52. And then bring down the negative, a positive and a negative. You're going to subtract off to the side, do your borrowing work. The positive has a bigger absolute value, so making the answer positive 24. And that concludes the worksheet on operations with integers review. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.